So if you're leading worship for 10 different people, they might have 10 different emotions that day, and you don't want to impose your emotions on the other person. So for corporate worship, you want to keep things focused on God and not on us too much. But you do have to get into that intersection. So structure and scope is also important in good worship songs. So Psalm 119 is very analytical. It's a ABC poem about the law of God, but it's also very personal. It says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Nothing will I fear as long as you are near." That's the Amy Grant translation of it. But these are really powerful images, really strong emotions. It's very personal. But when you look at the whole thing, the structure of it, this is a poem about the law. And it's got this really big, very structured thing going on, but it also gets personal. So I feel like good worship has that structure and scope as far as like the big picture, but it also gets specific into how this affects me. One thing that we're going to have to struggle with as worship writers is, do we go with the images that the Psalms give us, or do we ignore them? So you can write your whole life and just write songs based on what's in the Psalms. And there's nothing really wrong with that. I mean, it's the Bible, you can't really go wrong, right? Well, you can if you mix certain ones up or emphasize certain lines that are terrible. But we won't get into that too much. Weird, my camera is stopping. It's making noises. Okay, going with the Psalms is a really good thing to do, but at the same time, if we just write what's in the Psalms, we'll just be writing the same things over and over and over and over and over, which isn't bad, but I would challenge you to try to write new metaphors and new ways of relating our experience with God to song and relating it to images of our modern world or images that are just different from what we find in the Bible. Because that's going to make more interesting poetry, and it won't be more of the same. Now, obviously, something like saying that God is love, that's biblical, and that's what most worship is going to be about, you know? We're probably not going to discover a new characteristic of God and then be able to say, oh, we're going to write a worship song about that. But there are worship songs that put those things in different lights than what we normally would. So one of my favorite worship songs, which isn't really typically put in worship, is a Jars of Clay song called "Jealous Kind" that talks about how God's love is jealous, and this jealous love turns over tables and comes seeking us. So that's a very specific thing, and it also uses extended metaphors to get across what it's talking about. Another thing that I see powerful worship, you know, there's some parts of the Psalms that so in the Psalms we do have a lot of different types of worship, and some of them we don't sing so much. So, for example, we have the "Deliver Me from My Enemies" Psalms, where David is just like, "Help! God, I'm being chased. They're gonna kill me." So we don't have very many Psalms like that. We also have the Psalms that are, you know, like Psalm 118, "I love the law." How many worship songs have you heard that talk about how much we love God's rules? Not very many. We also have Psalms that are like, "Sing, trumpets, yeah!" which is like most of Hillsong songs. We also have songs that talk about how God's mercies are new, and God is a gentle pursuer who is always renewing us, always forgiving. We do sing a lot of those ones. We also have remembrance psalms. So some of the psalms are specifically meant to commemorate certain things like crossing the Red Sea and winning at the Battle of Jericho, and all these things where people had seen, oh, God did something there, and that is our God. So the God of Jacob, the God of Isaac, the God of Abraham, that's our God. And there are some really powerful psalms that are like that, and there's a few modern worship songs that are like that. Days of Elijah, for example, kind of evokes that sort of idea. And I would challenge you to take that further and say, okay, maybe I want to write a worship song about, God as the God of... You wouldn't even have to say the person's name in the song. That might be weird. But God is the God of whoever your spiritual hero is. The God of George Mueller, the God who provides for orphans when there's not money, and gives when we ask Him in faith, or the God of Amy Carmichael, who saves kids from sex slavery. And brings them into the home and teaches them about His ways. Or, the God of you. So what has God done in your life? What does a remembrance psalm look like for you? And then I want to challenge you to go beyond all of these things. And what are some new types of worship songs you might sing? What other sorts of psalms could you think of? What other sorts of psalms are there? What other sorts of songs are there in the Word? Jonah's song is one that I've rewritten, which is a really interesting one. And his first line is, "Your waves have swept over me." He's being a little literal here. So that's all we have for today. Use these. The biggest thing that I want you guys to take away from today is use images, use poetry, use art in your worship songs. The more poetry you put in your worship songs, the more it will be deep and lasting art. Obviously, we don't want to overdo it. We don't want things to be really, really up here in the head zone, especially for corporate worship. But for personal worship, for music that we're putting on a CD, for stuff like that, there's definitely a place for really high mental art. Handel's Messiah was a worship song that he wrote for church. Yeah, it's not a great song for just all of us to sing in worship because it's really hard to sing. But it is something that everyone in the world recognizes as, whoa, that's the Hallelujah chorus. And whoa, they can write some good worship music. So don't box yourself too much. Again, write the songs. Some songs are going to be like, yeah, I want to lead that in church in front of a bunch of people. And some songs are going to be like, that's my song that I'm going to sing for myself when I start to put my hope in girls and I need to give that to God again. For me, that's Only Hope by Switchfoot. So write those songs, write the personal worship songs, write the high art worship songs, write the Hey God, I love you songs. Feel free to do all of those things. And then, when it comes time to put something on an album, just pick what direction you're going and stuff like that. But you need to, I would really encourage you guys to just stretch yourselves in the different sorts of things that you're doing and in the different sorts of ways that you're writing. And just experiment with what you can do, what you like doing, what you don't like doing. And then once you've seen and tried all of these different kinds of ways of writing, then you can say, okay, I'm not a personal worship person. I don't write for myself. I write for other people. Or, okay, I'm not a corporate worship person. I want to write the songs that are personal and, more honest or more artsy than I can sing in front of a church. So feel free and figure out what it is that you want to do with worship, and use all of these different tools that you have, but don't overdo it again. Have it be honest, have it be overflow of your heart. And if you want to write good worship songs, one of the main things you need to do is listen to better worship music. I'm stretching myself by trying to listen to more John Mark McMillan and other artists who are using more art, but using it as worship. So anyway, have a great week. Sorry I'm late. And see you in a couple weeks with the next class. I'll post the prompts. Got 15 this time. And your homework as well. Bye.